I'll call the meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Welcome, George. Glad to have you here. So the agenda, hopefully we can get through stuff pretty quickly, but the first item on the agenda is the approving the minutes from the April 9th meeting. Hopefully everybody got a chance to read through them. And does anybody have any addendums or corrections or anything like that to the minutes from last month? Okay. And I would welcome a motion to approve the minutes from the April board meeting.
Madam President, I move to approve the minutes.
And I second.
Okay, Daniel made the motion and Mark seconded. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Any abstentions? All right, the motion passes and minutes are accepted. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Deb, for the great minutes. Quick finances report. Let's go, Deb.
Okay, I'm going to share screen here. Okay, got it okay, everyone?
Yep.
First, we're going to go with the balances. The balances, we had the main thing we did in the bank accounts this month is we finally got this balance moved. That was after the date, the cutoff date for the reconciliation of the bank statements. So those aren't the exact balances now. We moved the 194,000 to the on-point checking, which now makes that very high, but I'm going to recommend, the finance committee recommend to the board that we do different things with that much cash. So we'll expect that for next time. But our total cash and investments, you can see down there, 329. Not too much outstanding, not too much from that amount, that 329,786 is accounts payable. So we're pretty much caught up. That's how much, we have. Now races will be coming up, so we'll be spending, but then we have income as well. And yep. So that's that one. Deb, you got that? Okay. Here's the race report. Everyone waits for this one. First of all, our interest, we're doing well with the accounts on the interest income. We're at 83% for the year. Our dues, we're right almost where we should be. So we're coming up on May, June. We're over the amount we need for the budget for our member dues. Hopefully that will continue to go up. Race expenses and income. If you look on the right-hand side, you can see the race income, and in red, the race expense and the net amount for the races. Those do include year to date. So as of today, if I have a bill that was in today or yesterday or any time this month in May, I've entered that and updated this spreadsheet here just to keep our race directors apprised of, what their budget may be or may be coming. And if you ever, as a race director, need to know some of the details on that, what's been paid, what's not been paid, I'm happy to give you some of that detail as well. I think that's that.
Mark, do you know if there's for Hagg Lake Road, are there any more outstanding expenses to be paid? Probably a lot.
A few small ones. Not small ones. One, miscellaneous, like for food and that sort of thing. And I'll be submitting that shortly. The other thing, Hagg Lake does it funny as far as charging. A lot of places just charge a flat fee, to use a facility. Hagg Lake charges a percentage of the profits.
That's right.
Percentage of the income. So they need to, at some point, we'll need to give them an official report, and they'll let us know how much they're charging us. So that's
it's not even a percentage of the profits. It's a percentage of the income.
Exactly, of the gross income. Correct. So anyhow, that's kind of the big one out there, as far as that goes.
So do you mean the revenues?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So
we'll owe them right around $1,100 or $1,200 coming out there.
I think I forget now. It used to be 15. It might still be 15. It might have gone down to 10. I don't remember. I need to look at the contract, but I'll get Debbie, I'll get in touch with you. I'm gonna get a P&L for Vernonia and also one for Hagg, and that way I can contact the rangers at Hagg Lake and sort that out.
And for the Hagg Mud, they did send me a report to fill out so that I
Okay.
self-reported what our income was. And then they said, okay, if that's your income, this is how much you need to pay us.
Okay. So they contacted you. Okay. Well,
Through
I'd
the
like to
race director,
Okay, so yeah, so I'm assuming just be prepared. Well, give me a P&L for both those races, and if there's something I cannot answer myself, I will forward it on to you.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, sounds good. I'll get that to you. All right, that's what I have here. Does anyone have any questions?
Not on this section, nope.
Okay, I think that's that.
Okay.
Is that
So I had a suggestion. Well, I think you all got my email about Amanda resigning. She's our graphic designer.
Yeah.
And we were paying her originally $1,000 a month. And then last month we had voted to reduce it down to $700 a month. And I talked with her and talked about what we were hoping to do with the position. And she went ahead and resigned as of May 1st. And Julie and I looked at the constant contact and played around with it, and we were able to figure it out. So we don't believe we need to rehire a graphic designer. I think we can do this on our own. The last newsletter that just went out, we did on our own. So it won't have any fancy artwork, but got color scheme going. That's our artistic thing. So that in our budget will save us quite a bit of money, and we can make that a volunteer position maybe sometime in the future if we can't take it on. It's really not that hard. I think what happened was when we originally hired her several years ago, the club was low on volunteers and the current people on the board were overwhelmed, and their solution was to just pay somebody to do it because we don't have the time or the skill to do it. But I don't think that's the case anymore. So we will be able to save some money in the budget with the elimination of this position. Okay. All right. Any more questions on the budget?
I just want to say thank you for all the hard work to move the account. That's really a pain. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
No worries.
Valerie did a lot of that. Valerie did the initial, she's one who set everything up. I'm just kind of orchestrating it. So thank you, Valerie.
I wanted to tell you, I love the way you presented the information. That looked really great.
Oh, thank you. I'm working on it.
The last thing we need to do to close the Wells Fargo is just have either Valerie or I go into a branch and have them write us a check for the remaining balances to close out the accounts. That's all we have to do.
Just a few $100s we're expecting.
At each one, but all of the online bills, auto pays have all been switched to the credit union. So that's done. Okay. Let's go into RRCA, a recap of the event. And I will let actually George as our guest and RRCA rep have you go start the conversation.
Well, great. Well, thanks, Tracy. It's great to Mark, thank you for being the tour guide for your club. I think you were the second biggest group in the convention. San Antonio Roadrunners, they always seem to bring a big crowd, just say, hey, we're always going to bring more people. But it was great to be there. And I just want to came on and just say thank you for, coming to the convention. I know a lot of change has been happening, and I just want to show my support being here, maybe give some pointers. But yes, I'm termed out on May 31st. A lot going on, but it was great to have the convention back on the West Coast. Unfortunately, Portland, COVID, took it. Yeah. And the question we got, like, why can we get back to Portland? And obviously, the pandemic hit the RRCA very financially, and so obviously Orlando was open to everybody, and obviously we had a contract. They split it for 2 years, which was good. Obviously Chicago, so we're looking at like where can people easily travel to. I can't say in the future, but hopefully, it was great to have it on the Western region again. We had some great speaker, Fitz Kohler, she's a race announcer, a lot of the great races like Big Sur and so forth. A lot of different sessions as well going on. We had Run. the attendees, you know, for the 5K and the next day, the half and full, they got the VIP treatment. So got treated really well there too. And just, you know, of course, as president, I was just busy with other stuff, but, you know, it seems like people really enjoy themselves. You know, compared to other running conferences, the RC is a great deal. Just to let you know, we don't make money. The RC does not make money on the convention because we use the convention to, you know, fulfill our mission and value statements. So we try to find, we have other ways of trying to make money, but we don't make money in the convention. Again, it's just wanting, you know, people pass on information, people connecting with each other. Usually that's the best way. You learn, hey, our club does that. Well, that's a great idea as well. Next year's convention is in Minneapolis, the last weekend in April. And just going ahead, one of the things the national board is like, if you're looking for resources, for example, Barb Jewell, our treasurer, she spoke to my running club about finance. So, you know, contact, you know, the board member on the RRCA website. Hey, Barb, you know what? She'll be glad to do it. Or leadership. I know the new president, Lisa Rippe, is, you know, she's from Minnesota. So, you know, talk, or, you know, me too. But, you know, even though I'll be outside, you know, outside, be in the background like that. But again, thanks for coming. Keep up the great work. Hey, yeah, Daniel, you got a question?
Yeah, George, thanks for being on our meeting today, and I appreciate your leadership. You had heard George and I met 25 years ago, back when we were both state reps. It was kind of fun. Is there any, speaking of state reps, is there any progress being made on getting Oregon a state rep? It's kind
Yeah,
of
so let me,
we don't have a state rep in Oregon with all of the running we have up here.
yeah, and obviously we have a vacancy in the Western region. And so basically, the reason why it hasn't gone for so long is like during the springtime, the board development committee was working on the national slate. Obviously, the Western region director was not up for election. That was a priority. And I felt, one, that the board development committee needed rest. I couldn't swing it around. And plus the new president, I felt it was her call to have input on that. So once, hopefully during the summertime, we'll get a Western region director. Once that's in place, Oregon is not the only state where there's openings as well. You know, things happen. And so basically, I'm hoping like in late summer, there'll be a call out. RRCA website will have, hey, if you're interested in applying for that. We're actually, one trend we're doing is getting away from using the title state representative. We're just using the word representative. And so, for example, like one of our California state reps, I should say, she covers Nevada, the Tahoe side, whereas the Arizona rep covers like Las Vegas as well. And we're just finding that if the RSA, we looked at the map of like where all the clubs are, and you can see like some states really don't have any RSA clubs. And so, for example, Washington State does not have a rep, but who knows? If the rep lives in across the river in Vancouver, they might cover, or vice versa, somebody from Oregon. So I would just say keep an eye out for Oregon. I know it's not good to have a voice, but just to let you know that President Rippey, you know, she's a good one. Andy Smith programs at rrca.org. If there's any issues like championship, Andy's right now just filling the gaps at that point.
I'm glad you're here, you're taking that approach. You'll remember I was state rep for both Oregon and Washington for a couple of years, so I'm glad you're taking the approach of making sure that it's practical. And that was my second question: was could the Washington rep cover Oregon? But clearly you don't have a Washington rep either. So, all right, thank you very much, George. Good to see you.
Daniel, for what it's worth, too, Andy permitted me to attend the meeting. I'm not officially a state rep or anything, but I did attend the meeting and got the latest updates. And I wrote a brief report and sent it to all the board members and race directors, so you're at least current on what's going on, you know, for right now.
Yep. Cool.
Well, hopefully, I don't know yet about me. I need time off. Basically, I'm a teacher at a I have a whole difficult case of kids, and I'm sort of glad to be terming out at the right time. Same at the end of the school year. But I say do make the commitment to somebody, because again, I think meeting people in person, the session, it does pay dividends. You make connections as well. So that's just my 2 cents. And again, thanks again for what you're doing and making the commitment to the convention.
Great. Yeah, we'll definitely be some more people next year too.
Yeah. If I could put in my 2 cents.
Sure.
I'll keep it short. I just kind of echo what George said. That I've been to conventions that are just kind of, you learn a lot, but they're not a whole lot of fun. And our RRCA, you say, hey, I'll meet you tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. to run 4 miles. You don't say that at every convention. And I learned a lot, as I always do, but also had a lot of fun. And there's a number of ideas I took away from some of the workshops. I'll have a couple of proposals ready for the July meeting to present to the board based on that. I will say that just a great group of people. Of the 4 women that I traveled with, I've known Susan a long time. But the other 3 I did not know, and we traveled well together, got along terrifically. It was just a really good group of people, and I would trust them in my travel, and I would trust them to run my club. So they're good people. I just want to share a quick little story. I made a reference to it in my report somewhere, but about the connections that you make and remake at the RRCA. The first connections made with the other board members. Zoom calls I hate Zoom calls. I hate them.
Yeah.
To be with people even for a couple of days and get to know their face and their person. And we're going to do a quiz later on about some of the secrets we've revealed to each other, but it's just something about meeting people in person. And it starts with just as simple as the people that are serving on this board and getting to know them, not just from a Zoom call. The other one, the last little bit is this. I made a point of not sitting with the org people, for meals and such. I intentionally would sit somewhere else, to not sit with the same people all the time, to let the just randomness of it enter in. And so one meal I was, you look around, look at name tags. There's a guy there from North Carolina, and I told him, about Oregon, and he says, oh yeah, I used to live in Oregon. And I go, cool. Well, next time you're in Oregon, you really ought to try running the Vernonia Marathon. And he says to me, run it. I won it. The very first year, 2011, this guy, he won the Vernonia Marathon. It even still had a picture on his phone to prove it. I mean, I believed it, but he still had the picture. So it's just those kind of connections and reconnections you make with people are just amazing.
That's awesome. I love that story. What about you all? Debbie, Nikki, Susan, any other? I saw Susan, I saw your feedback that you submitted to everybody.
I'll go. It was a really good time. It was a good chance to just get to know the board members that we see on Zoom here or that we know in other ways, but really to meet a lot of people from around the country. George, it was so great to watch you on your scooter. Hopefully your foot is 100% healed soon. The race was really great.
4 more weeks.
Yeah. Oh, 4 more weeks. Oh, well, that's kind of a great novelty to have your scooter. You don't miss you. That's all. You don't miss you coming. Yeah, just, having I liked the app to get to know people too. That was kind of I haven't used an app before for a convention, and it was nice to be able to have some meetups, and it was a good space, I thought, to do the convention, big enough to let people spread out, but small enough where you could see the same faces here and there and be able to sit with them or converse with them. I really had a good time. Great time traveling with everybody too.
Awesome.
I think we all learned that you only need to really bring 1 shirt to run in, because you'll be given like 4 running shirts at the convention. No one told us that. I was like, oh, I needed to budget space in my bag for bringing all these like running shirts.
Yeah, there you go.
With me. I planned that. So And where do you get to like hang out at the bar and see the world record holder for like 100 miles and for a 6-day race, Camille Herron, come hang out with you, and she's a little tipsy and tell you about when she was 18 and met her husband at some, like, what was it, state fair in Oklahoma? Like, that was pretty funny. Like, you don't get those kind of moments in regular conferences. So we had a lot of fun. It's very inspiring also to hear what other clubs are doing, and every club has different needs in their community. So some clubs have really huge and robust training programs. Some of them are putting on huge races like how we used to put on the Portland Marathon. So there's different capacity depending on those clubs and what their communities need. And it's just really inspiring to hear how people are tackling that and doing great things for people's health in their community.
Great.
At the airport, Debbie and I realized we worked together.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
That was a good connection.
And I didn't tell you, Nikki. I went back to work and I searched your name in my email, and yeah, we've emailed back and forth before with work.
Yeah.
No way. No way.
I'm updating my beneficiary because I just got my statement. So
Woohoo!
I'll be sending you something.
Page 4. Look on your statement, page 4.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that was really cool. We also, like, when we were sitting in the hotel lobby, realized that we were sitting with the Missoula race marathon, or the race director. And so I think we have a field trip to Missoula next year planned.
Cool.
Yeah. There was 2 that I really had some takeaways, 2 things. One was waivers for our group runs. I haven't been to any of our group runs because I'm not super local, but we should have waivers. And there could be lawsuits if someone gets hurt. So that's a good one. And then the volunteer session that Chandra put on was really good and really good information for wrangling volunteers. So
Great.
I enjoy those. And PR, how we can reach out to the news outlets. So I got something out of that too. I will type up something and send that as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Susan. You're on mute. You're on mute. Are you on mute? Doesn't say you're on mute. It doesn't say she's on mute. Oh, well, that's fine. Her speaker's there. Well, we got your report and it was really good. She can't talk. Where is she doing? I'd be helpless at this point. Yeah, I would too. Okay. Okay. If she can get that working, otherwise, put it in the chat. All right. Well, thank you. There we go. I have a new computer. Sorry. Okay. Don't worry about it. Well, I'm glad everybody had a great time and had lots of information, and we can follow up on some of the ideas that you have at our next meeting too. And George, we're going to go on with the continuation of our meeting. If you want to stick around, you can, but you don't have to. But good, glad you were.
Near the end of the school year, Tracy. You know how it goes. But I just want to say, what you're doing for the club is hard work. Volunteer, but you're doing it because you care for your club and community. So I just want to give some RRCA presidential love to you, and just thanks for being a member of the RRCA. I wish you the best, and I think things are going to go well for you guys. And hopefully we will see each other sometime. But feel free to connect with me if you still have any questions. All right.
Sure will. Thank you. Bye, George.
Bye.
All right. Next up, discussion topics. Revisit our SWOT analysis. Daniel.
All righty. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to share my screen for a second and pull up the analysis, the actions piece of it. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep. Yes.
All right. So we did the analysis in February. We had 2 hours to do a 3-hour exercise. And not shockingly, we ended up about an hour short. And the reason was because once we got into the actions, we were running out of time. We probably could have put a whole bunch of more actions out there. I was hoping to give everybody something on this list. This is where we ended up with our areas of concentration after doing the first part of the exercise. And so we probably have some extra work to do, but the point of putting this on the agenda was to see how we're doing on our actions. The ones we did doing on our actions. So let's take a look here. We did do an aid station we did do a presence at the Shamrock Run since then. So and that went, from what we can tell, pretty well. I do believe we do have a marathon aid station in the works. So that's actually doing good. Connection to other running groups. We've actually partnered with, since then, with a few of the groups that are running at the stores to do some group runs, and only for the cost of some pizza, which we brought down considerably after some negotiations. That's been pretty good. Connection with Special Olympics about partnership. That's been one phone call is all we've got really gone. I have not I've been really slammed with stuff with my 2 races coming up. So this could use some, so the first one that's not on target, of course, is mine. Connect with the race walking community with Duel. We managed to do this the only way to do it is to find the race walker extraordinaire, which is Carmen Jakinski. And she is actually doing a race walking clinic here next week, I believe, or is it this week? It might be this week. So needless to say, that one's going to work, and she's going to be pushing our race. We're hoping for about 4 or 5 race walking teams. If we get that, then that'll be great. And we can get them back to doing events for us. Branding and marketing subcommittee, Tracy, I will let you report on that.
Haven't done anything.
Very good. Okay. Awesome. I just lost everything, didn't I? Okay.
There it is. Okay.
Okay, Venmo, Debbie, and finance subcommittee. I guess your subcommittee's in place, right, Debbie?
We do. We have a subcommittee, but I haven't done much, but we want to work on regular dates, get with the committee and see if we can find a regular, at least quarterly date to meet. I haven't done that quite yet. Up on the Venmo, I haven't done all the research on it, but I might tend to not recommend we do a Venmo or a PayPal if the purpose is for someone to pay at the race, and rather to have run sign up available to do right there. I mean, run sign up's already in place for registration. So if we can do that on our phone or have a station set up instead of Venmo or PayPal, it just takes one more step out of us getting the money. If it's run sign up, it's already there. All the waivers might be there if we're there. So I think is that what we're thinking, or in terms of merchandise? That's what
I was actually thinking in terms of if for the board and people, if I owe the club money, I want to be able to just Venmo over, and rather than worry about writing a check and sending it or find some other way. And so that's kind of, for example, I want to pay my membership this year, but I'm a lifetime member. You're not going to bill me. It's going to show me as paid. So I would need a way to do that without putting a check in the mail. That's all. I don't write a lot of checks anymore these days. So just the odd one. I mean, everything else, if I'm paying membership for myself and I'm a member and I need to pay, then Run Sign Up has that built in.
Right.
But if it's odd, if I'm paying for somebody else, that's a little awkward. So I was thinking one-offs and things like that.
I think also Venmo would have been for, not for necessarily race registrations, but if they wanted to like buy a t-shirt at the event.
Exactly.
That didn't run
Yeah.
sign up.
Yeah, and yeah, that happens to me all the time. I got somebody goes, "You got extra shirts?" "Yeah." "How much?" $20 cash. "I don't have cash." And there's the end of the conversation. And whether it's Venmo or set up through Run Sign Up, it matters not to me, but it should be easy and simple, so simple that I can understand it. So
okay.
that's
We'll
my,
take that back up and see what else we can come up with.
okay.
And then data analytics, it was just a matter of all this data we're gathering, and Adnan did a pretty good job of figuring out some stuff, and we wanted to put some regular timing on it and make sure that if we're going to all the trouble to get this data, to do these surveys, that we're using it. And so he's not here to speak to that. So those are the only things that we had set in stone. I'm going to go back to the areas of concentration. Is there anything here we did not discuss? The race director's briefing memos. This was an idea we brought up there, where we would, at the end of our race, at the end of the year, particularly this is directed at one specific race director, the name of Daniel, who will be leaving his races this year and needs to have a briefing memo that the future race directors can follow, so they're clear on who I use for awards, how do I get the permits, what happens if your first two places for the race aren't around, or if the person in charge of permits at the other side gets COVID and is gone for 2 months, all of which happened this time for summer solstice. So I mentioned I'm going to do it for my 2 races, and then it came up that we should probably all have these on file, just so we don't get stuck with Hal with 11 weeks to go with 3 races on the books, trying to figure out what all was done and what all he has to do. So that's just still a thought, and maybe that's something that Mark and I can work on, him being race operations. I know he's dying to get rid of that job, but
yeah, we can. I'm old school. I mean, if I died tomorrow, I have files on everything, paper folders. Yeah, you know. But the past administration, their expectation, which I never met, was to have all documents in the Google workspace for the club, and Stephen, for all of his, we all should have our stuff online, did not have all his stuff online. So I don't know, like, speaking only for myself, I've got paper files, but Daniel, this is a worthy conversation for the 2 of us, and come back with something more concrete at a future meeting would be worthwhile.
And
can I step in and just promote the Google Docs? Because that will let anybody have access then.
Yeah.
That needs it.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
if you don't have access to a folder, just let me know, and it's a checkbox for me. So good enough. And the only thing left here is look at everything else we've got covered. So we did a really good job on this particular analysis. I think the next thing we want to do is probably, maybe not this year, we've got a lot going on. And if you think of where we are, we're almost a year now since the great dump off into Mark's lap of the club. Look at the progress we've made, and look what we've done just since January and the tweakings we've done. But I might recommend that maybe a 4 or 5 hour Saturday be spent, maybe a library room or someplace, and do a full on strategic planning, probably after the next board is elected. But this is a worthwhile exercise to do. And if we want, we can build on our previous analysis and come up with, there's still a lot in here that we haven't touched on. I love this one. How are the other clubs faring? We learned at the ORRC convention, a lot of the clubs are faring well. The problem is the ones that we learned about and how they're excelling, the ones that are struggling probably weren't at the convention. So we were speaking kind of to the more successful clubs in that regard. So all good conversations that we can have. And I feel like it was a couple of hours very well spent, and just the progress we've made since then was good. So any comments people have, I'm willing to drop it here and move on.
Awesome. Anybody have any questions for Daniel? Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Daniel. Okay, just a very quick item and I know this is a long way off, but for the January Awards Banquet for 2025, We looked at the Spaghetti Factory because we're already kind of partnering with them with Turkey Trot. They're giving us coupons and stuff, which is great. The one at Tannisport. So we went to the Spaghetti Factory at Tannisport, and they actually have a separate room they can close off, so you're not part of the rest of the restaurant, where they can fit 100 people in, and we can do a PowerPoint with the pictures and the, you know, all that stuff on the wall and stuff like that. And the cost of the food is would actually, well, we didn't pay for food last year because they never gave it to us, but the the Spaghetti Factory cost would actually be very comparable, if not slightly less than what PCC's food would have cost us. And so they would not charge for the room. So basically we're just paying for the food. So there's free parking. It's easy to get there. The Tannisport one's super easy to get to off of 26. So my suggestion was that we go ahead and have the awards banquet in January 2025 at Spaghetti Factory at Tannisport. What do you all think?
I like that idea. That's a good idea.
Okay. Cool.
I concur.
Have you looked at the downtown location for considering a more central location?
Did, but they do not have a separate room that we could use that can be closed off.
It's not big enough for.
And it's not big enough. So basically
They do have a separate room. I don't know how big it is.
Well, yeah, we contacted them. We contacted them, and she said, no, not here, but try Tannisport. So they specifically said Tannisport for what?
Probably just a smaller room. Yeah, I've done like end of season marathon training group stuff there, but yeah, it probably wasn't 150.
We had our basketball association banquets there a lot, and we would alternate between Clackamas and Tannisport every other year, and that way we're able the next year to cater to the East Siders, and so that worked well. But yes, there is a upstairs at the one downtown has a big space, but unless we're doing it on a Tuesday night, they're not going to let anybody take. I mean, that place fills up on weekends, so.
Yeah, the only other place I've done events that's more casual is like the Lucky Lab on Quimby. But it, you know, and that's a different vibe. It's definitely more casual.
Bag Factory, I'm all on it.
All right, we will move forward with that then. All right, starting with a recap of events. Vernonia, Mark.
Vernonia, well, it worked. Numbers were almost pre-pandemic. Weather was perfect. Adding the relay, I think it helped the numbers, but it also, I think, generated some real excitement too, you know, something different. And that's a piece of it that I think will grow as word gets out about it. Caboose was a wonderful little story. It was a mother and a son both did the marathon. The son ran a lot faster than mom because mom was the caboose, but she did it, you know, and it was just, if you've seen the pictures, it was just inspiring to see that. I mean, overall, it was just, it just worked. I mean, I have no real, could have always used more volunteers, but that's kind of the refrain we always hear, but we had enough to make it work. And considering the fact that the day started out bad where the custodian was 35 minutes late unlocking the cafeteria where all of the bibs and everything were, we started at 8:02. I mean, essentially on time. So, you know, despite that really awkward start, it all came together, and I'm just pleased with it. So, went well.
Cool. And let's see, the other thing that happened was Race Director Workshop went off last weekend, and it went off really well. We had 14 people sign up. One person didn't show, but then 2 people showed up who just happened to be at the library. They were actually, it was funny. They thought they heard race director, and they were road races, great car rally. Yeah. So they thought they were in the wrong place, but they liked the information, and they are really gung ho, but they'd never heard of us before. So that was really funny, but it went off really well, helped a lot of people. don't know if anybody who attended would really be a race director. They were more looking for how can I put on a race for my school or for my conference organization, something like that. But they appreciated the help. So that went really well. And the next one,
a lot of the organization for a car rally works for a race for
exactly, getting the permits, getting the volunteers, marketing, all that stuff, you know. Yeah.
The next race director workshop will be in October. It's the same weekend as Portland Marathon. Alan will be taking charge of that. I had asked Portland Marathon, depending on, because they wanted to partner with us and help promote it, and said, well, can you get us a room wherever the convention is? But they don't have any extra rooms at the convention, so we'll be apart from them. But it went really well. Okay. Hagg Lake, Mark again.
Weather was a tad warm, but we got most of the runners done in the cool of the day. Note to self, in the future, an 8 a.m. start instead of a 9 a.m. start. Climate change is a real thing, and to have a race in May and be that warm to me is, you know, we need to do what's safe for the runners. So, I would move the start time. Other than that, smoothly. We did, excuse me a second. Did a little bit different this year. Hal and I did a lot of setup on Friday, camped out overnight, and then we're right there for Saturday morning to get things going. And logistically, most things worked. Two glitches. One glitch was the board ribbon. I left them at home, and so that's on me, and I'll take care of that. The other thing is there was a bit of confusion about the caboose, because someone said the sweepers are here, and I said, cool, that means we're done. And I should have asked a clarifying question, because there were two sets of sweepers, and indeed the 10K sweepers had finished, but the 10 milers had not. So at a point where I thought the caboose had come, it had not. There was a bit of confusion on that, and I apologize to the people that I almost gave the award to. But we did give it to the correct person once we figured out, that, they were still out there, and then they were the last to cross. But other than that, I've just received lots of compliments about Hagg. A lot of people saying they're glad to see it come back. It's always been a small, low-key race, just a very ORRC race. What's gotten more complicated is the permitting. Back in the day, we just run around the lake and that was it. And now with Washington County LUT, they're like, you got to have flaggers here and flaggers there, and it's gotten, more complicated that way. So I don't know. I'm waiting to see what the final financials are and the numbers. All good things. If I can make Hagg Lake work financially, I will continue doing Hagg Road. But I don't want it to be a money loser. So I want to see how the financials come out. Because the race has been around for a long time, but nothing lasts forever. And kind of wait and see. That's a whole discussion we'll have when it comes time to discuss the calendar for 2025. But my feeling is that at this point I have Ralph's Run, Vernonia, and Hagg Lake, plus a co-RD of Turkey Trot. If Hagg should take a break, be off the calendar for a while, that I would be willing to bring something else back. Whether it up the lazy river or something else, because I like doing races. And so if I don't do Hagg, I would RD another one. Yeah, Susan.
I would hope that Hagg would never go away again.
Okay. All right.
When I talked to with my husband and I and all of our friends that have run it, we love that race.
What do you like about it? What do you like about it?
I love the course because it's not a closed course, but there's not a lot of cars out there because it's out in the country. Yeah. You've got the view of the lake. The hills are challenging. The trees give you some shade, so it's not scorching hot. It always feels like a very small, cozy group. I got home from the race and I told my husband that I thought there were only about 100 runners, and then I looked at the results and there were 200 runners. So
Mhm.
I was off by, by quite a bit. You're laughing at me, Tracy and Julia. I see you.
Well, there was 100 in the 10 miler, and there was about 40 in the 10K, and another 50 in the 5K. So,
Yeah.
and when
Yeah,
you mention word of the
exactly. Exactly. But yeah, it was. I've always liked it. I hope it doesn't go away.
Okay. Long as it at least breaks even and people love it, I'll keep doing it. So.
And the good news is I figured out my new computer.
Woo!
Yeah, well, that's right. We can hear you talking. So, in general, Hagg worked. I mean, to me, it's always just kind of a relief after doing Vernonia, a point-to-point marathon with all the aid stations and all the logistical things. And then I get to Hagg Lake and it's like, oh, I used the leftovers for the aid stations from Vernonia, and it needs fewer volunteers and the permitting is simpler. And it's just, it's kind of Hagg follows Vernonia pretty closely on the calendar, but for me, it's kind of a nice relief because it is a much simpler race to do. And, it's not big and fancy. Here's a banana, be happy, but I do try to give away lots of good stuff, pies and the whole bit. So.
And I would say we probably need to start thinking about our race calendar for 2025, just to make sure we get the dates set up and decide what we want to do. I know there's been talk about possibly bringing autumn leaves back in 2025. And I had talked with Mark about Hagg about main thing that would be a concern, maybe not for 2025. I think it's starting in 2026, is they're going to be doing a bunch of construction and stuff on the dam.
The other big thing, they've been for the last couple decades, there's been talk of raising the dam, moving the dam, reinforcing the dam to make it earthquake safe. There is a almost official proposal that's on the table now to raise the dam slightly, but not increase the capacity of the water in the lake, because it is a reservoir. But you're looking at 3 years of construction. And that it's going to be hard, that I have given input in the process. And my thing is that be sure that even during construction that runners and cyclists still have access to the lake, because they're going to do it whether you want them to or not. So let's be sure there's an official way to go. So otherwise, because people are going to do it anyway. And that may be something that, depending upon what the construction looks like exactly, depending upon the logistics of all that, it may put Hagg Road, Hagg Mud on hiatus anyway at a certain point when those 3 years hit. But, the plans aren't, final approved yet, but I would say good chance that some version of that is going to happen in the next couple of years.
Yes.
Don't hold your breath.
I don't know. They sound serious now.
Is that Washington County?
No, the thing is it's BLM, the land around, because it's a Washington County park, and Scoggins Valley Park, but the land actually is BLM, so all the decisions go through them, not the county.
Well, I mean, where does the funding come from? Because Washington County has no money.
Yeah.
But if it's BLM, it's possible.
Yeah.
So we'll have a larger conversation about that there.
Yeah.
Nicki, President's Challenge update.
Okay, so I need help accessing the participants, and I saw Jeff said he was gonna send that information on an email recently. So anyway, that's where I'm at, is I need help accessing it, or maybe we can stay on Zoom afterwards and we can share screens and be able to grab the runner participants, because I can see the volunteers, but I can't see the runners. So that's where I'm at. And as soon as I can get that, then I can give an update and send out an email to people.
I know Jeff was going to have prepare something so that we would have a link on our website so people could check and see where they were. So he was going to send something this week. I think, something like that. So we can check in with him. But also, yeah, we could actually, in some of the results, we can download the participants of the race. I don't want just the register. We want to have the finishers of the event. So we would need all the results and then download. That would help out. So, but before we do that, go to that option, let's see what Jeff sets up for us and see if we can find it that way.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, upcoming events. Daniel, Dave's Solstice Run.
Okay, we're finally, I think we've got our last little detail. I think we're ordering our bandanas today. So as soon as those are out, we'll really be in publicity mode now. Just getting everything going so that we can make sure that people know about it. The only big expense I have coming up, we're still going to need to have parking passes. We're going to buy about 200 of them, 150, something like that. Parking passes, we'll be giving them to people when they sign in. We're going to, as soon as, in fact, when they come in, we might have volunteers meeting people at the parking lots and handing them out, just so that they're going to ticket cars. So we want to be sure that they're not having to buy their passes. We're going to buy the passes for them. I'm planning on 200 people, but I'm also thinking a lot of people are going to carpool. So probably 150 would be the number we'll buy. And that will have that expense. We'll have our awards. And I think all the major expenses will be there. We're also going to be going with ice cream and popsicles at the end, largely because two of our major rules for this park is no dogs or pets of any kind, not even in the car, waiting in the cars. And then the other one, everybody has to be out by 8. We got to be out by 8. So I'm going to start calling out awards at 7:05. If we have to do it dual style and come back and do a second round of awards, then we'll do that. That way people can have their ice cream. Thankfully, it's going to be an all park course. So we'll be on the road for 200 yards in 2 different places, but we will never be on a busy road. We'll only be on a bike path on one side and a very unused road on the other side. And so it's going to be very parkish and a very Daniel-esque race. And it's a 2-lap race. Jeff is going to be measuring the course, not certifying it, because I didn't want to certify a race for spend money on that if the future race directors have a different idea for upcoming events. It will be accurate. Jeff's going to do it, so it will be accurate. And then it's going to be very, very simple. We're on track now. Thankfully, I ran into a little problem about 3 weeks ago. I was way overwhelmed waiting for people and then not waiting for people. And all of a sudden everything happened at once. Plus my other nonprofit, I had a major event in the last week in April. So thankfully, Julia and Tracy stepped up, took a hold of the things that needed to be taken a hold of and got that stuff done. So now the next thing is going to be just awards and then getting the popsicles and the stuff ready to go. I think we're going to be able to do it with minimal equipment. We are going to need a little bit larger cadre of volunteers, only because the park has stipulated that I had 6 volunteer locations. They added 3. And then we're going to need some pre-race volunteers to hand out parking passes. Those can be people that run. And I may do some of my little fancy Burma shave signs out on the course, just to kind of make it more summer solstice-y, and just to have some fun with it. But we're on track for Blue Lake. Finally, we also, you may have heard last month that Mount Tabor has canceled all events, all permits for 2024 and spring of 2025 because of the trees that fell. So thank God our first choice didn't work out, because we would be scrambling right now. So maybe Dave was talking to us and saying, no, dude, you got to have this thing at summer solstice. So I have not reached out to Ruth Green. I need to do that. I may have Alan do that for me. If she can either come or have a member of her family come, I would love to have them either start the race or offer the winner award, the plaque or something. I'd love to recognize their family at some point. but Alan's got the relationship with Ruth, so I may have him make that contact for us. But Summer Solstice is on track. Very good.
Awesome.
Daniel, when you say Jeff is going to measure the course, you mean Jeff Huber, I assume?
I do. No, Jeff Jones. He's my next door neighbor. He's a surveyor. Yeah, no, Jeff Huber. He does
Okay.
he does them on Google Earth, and then he has this fancy way of measuring a course incredibly accurate. It's not going to come up 2 laps even. It's going to be a little short. So I told him I'd prefer to have the start be 100 yards away and finish near the shelter than the other way around. I want the finish to be near the shelter. People can go down the road and start. That's not usually a big deal. But then once they get across, we want to be able to get their ice cream, and so we can kind of go through the awards. We won't have any door prizes probably because we need to get people out of there. But it's going to be fun. We're going to have bandanas. It's going to be our swag item. We were going with visors, but I didn't like it. And then I saw the idea of a bandana, kind of like a buff or something. And that way it's kind of more summery. And we have a new logo I wanted to show off. So hopefully that'll be good for everybody. We're looking forward to it.
Cool.
20th.
Thank you, Daniel. Member and volunteer appreciation picnic. Margie is working on that. Everything's in place. Registration's up and running. We just also set up volunteer page so people can click on that and register to volunteer if they want to do that. Should be a fun time had for all. So we'll start marketing that. And then Duel again, Daniel.
Same race, different year. I finally decided that the hour before, we're going to bring back a very watered down version of the Orc Mile. We're going to have 3 heats, maybe 4. We're going to do a men's run, a women's run. If nobody signs up for the Pacers Mile, that's fine. I have it scheduled on the program where you guess your time. If we don't get a lot of response to that, I'll drop it just so we can have more time to get ready for the Devil Takes the Hindmost 2 Mile. I have procured a Devil volunteer who shall remain anonymous. And we have a way of the Devil. Basically, if you've never seen this before, it's basically something I stole from an indoor track meet I saw, where the Devil starts a little bit late, and and here it's going to be the end of the first lap that the last person has. Then the Devil will take off with a pitchfork, and they have to make up that lap, and everybody that they see along the way, he'll stab them with the pitchfork on the butt, and then they have to get off the track. I'm hoping to die quickly because I don't think I can run and walk too much right now. I'm still hobbling. But and then we'll leave 1 male and 1 female runner on the track to finish 2 miles, and they'll get the award. And if not, if there's more than, if the people are too fast for the Devil, then whoever wins, top male, top female. And that will be right before the kids run. And then and remember too, you don't have to worry about slow on this one because the slow people are going to get tagged out. So it's probably a 10-12 minute race at the most. We'll have the kids run, and then the dual I call extravaganza, which is about a 12 event thing going. I've got the awards going. It's going to be very much like last year, very fun, low key, and we're back on a weeknight in mid-July. I'm worried about the heat. I always do worry about the heat here. One of the good things about Catlin is it does cool down pretty quickly. So, and both of these races, a minimal of equipment. We're going to be doing I'm going to take just what we need, not a whole lot more. I'm not going to have like Steven used to do when he used to help me. He'd bring, 2 pickup trucks full of everything, and we would, I don't know why I needed 7 tents, but the one time it did help is the cooling station, and Hal knows how to do that. If it gets to be above 90, then I might have him come and help me with that again. But it's a great race. We do not have a promotional item for that race. I had not planned to do one. It's very rare. I kind of do them on the 5s, every year on the 5. And so this year we're not going to do that. So anyways, race is proceeding apace. Again, it will need some publicity, but the good money on this race is always late money. So, and also I'm counting on the people that are at the running groups to promote it. This is a great race for running groups to come to, and that's why it's on a Thursday night. So, or Tuesday night. It's Tuesday night this year. So anyways, good enough, everybody. And this race will also be, I'm going to let Tracy and Julia talk about this. This is my last race as a race director. And I've been running this race or participating for 38 years. So it's going to be a bit of a night for me. I've also tried to invite all of my past partners that I've run with in this race over the years. I think there's 9 different people. I don't know if any of them are going to show up. My nephew probably will. Joe will probably be there, and I'm guessing that Mark will be there. So there's 3 people that will probably be there that I've actually run with as a partner. And Carissa, yes, I do know what it's like to run with Joe in that race and not get any rest. But I was a lot younger back and faster back then, so it wouldn't be as bad as it is now. But needless to say, I'm looking forward to this event. And I'm also looking forward to stepping away, but it's been a long time, and so it's going to be a good night. I'm looking forward to it, and come on out and have some fun. We did continue the quad too this year. I'm going to let Julia or Tracy talk about their challenge.
Oh yeah, basically last year we put together 2 teams of board members and race directors, volunteers and stuff, and had a great time. And so I put that invitation out there if you're interested in doing it. We have how many people right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people so far who have indicated they want to be on a team. If we can get 2 more, that would be 2 full teams. So if you're interested, let me know. Should be fun. All right. Thank you, Daniel.
Let me ask a question. Do we need to sign up individually for that? Because I'll do that, but I don't know how we sign up.
I think there's a
yeah, what'll happen is if I sign up, I can create a team, and then you specifically, when you register, you ask to join that team.
Okay. So you'll let us know what your team is. Okay.
Don't be scared by the heat if it gets in the 90s, because it cools down fast. If it's going to be one of those where it's going to stay in the 90s and it's going to be high 90s, then we will all have a conversation. We have been there before. This race has been postponed 3 different times, twice in the same year. Once for heat, and then once, Chris will remember, once for heat, and then 2 weeks later for smoke. So we ended up holding the race about a month later. Thankfully, Catlin was great about it. So we will take all that into account. If it's going to be just too hot to run, we won't do it. But it's mid-July. I can't imagine why it would be.
Thank you. Okay, Pumpkin Ridge, I will let you know, we officially opened up registration for Pumpkin Ridge today, yesterday. Days are swimming by. And we don't have the permits yet, but we decided to take the risk and go ahead and do it. And if they don't approve the permits, then we just have to cancel it, let everybody know. But we also are changing the start time. So the half marathon starts at 7, and then the 5 and the 10 start at 7:30. So it'll be an earlier start, and everybody will be on the course at the same time. But that way we won't have the problems we had last year with the 5Kers starting as the half marathoners were finishing. So we don't have a lot of people there. So we're just working on the permits and the course, and Hal's working on that, and it's moving along. Yeah, we had some stuff on the website that Carissa thankfully was taking down. Sherry from North Plains Events Planning said that you've mentioned Jesse Hayes Community Center and this other location on between these streets that you don't have permission to use, so you can't post them yet. And we're like, okay, we'll take them down, and as soon as we find out if it's approved, then we will put them back up. Yeah. So we're not using. So right now it says the North Plains area. So they won't allow us to be. Yeah.
So these guys used to be Queen Puffs. What the hell happened?
I have no idea. I don't know if there's a whole bunch of politics going on in North Plains right now, and I don't know if that's affecting everything that's going on right now, but yeah,
Well,
if
yeah,
they don't
it's
approve,
been-
they were super
been-
helpful last year when we only had 2 weeks to get the permit approved, and this year they're just being a little stricter, and I don't know. We thought it was the Garlic Festival people before, but it's also possibly the North Plains people, but I don't know. But it's being.
So is this race, is that, I mean, I apologize for being way behind the curveball here, but I haven't run it for a few years. So is the half marathon, is it twice the run or is it its own course?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
going back to the old course, and so it's going to be the half marathon will be 2 loops of the 10K course.
Cool.
And the 10K will not be an out and back, it will be a loop. So it'll just be 1 loop. And
Greatest-
hopefully also by starting earlier, we won't have as much traffic either.
Greatest loop 10K in the world, in the city. No question about it.
Yep. So that's Pumpkin Ridge. Valerie, best damn run.
Yeah, Bonnie and I are planning to get together this weekend and get some work done on this one. So
Awesome.
we've
The
been
registration's up.
crossing paths and stuff, so we're working on that. So we should be moving forward then. We've talked about this and that, but we're gonna kind of officially write it down. And we've been trying to figure out, we got this idea that we really wanted to have baked potatoes, but we can't figure out how to do that. We can't find any like Grange people or local people at Estacada to cook those for us. So we just haven't figured that out. So we have to work out a different food plan too.
It'll be great. Okay. Portland Marathon Expo, I've already kind of talked about that. We do have a booth. It is going to be at the convention center. And we are going to have an aid station. We haven't connected with the person who's doing the aid stations, but they did ask us. And we're going to be a cheer station. We're going to be a cheer station. So the participants will be able to vote on their favorite cheer station on the course. So I'm going to get, as soon as I get more information, I'll get that to Joel and he can set that up. But we are on track for the Portland Expo.
So think of a theme for our cheering section
For our aid station. And then I know Marcus left. Turkey Trot I know is going forward. They're on track for that. Dave is going to take charge of the permit stuff, so I don't have to worry about that. So that's all going good so far. Topics for the next board meeting. I think we may want to start talking about our race calendar for 2025. So adding that, especially if we want to maybe add autumn leaves back in the picture. Sounds like Mark will still do Hagg Lake. I think the money looks good there. So if money's the issue, I don't think he's going to be able to back out of that one. So if you have anything you want to add on the next board meeting, that would be great. Our next meeting is going to be Deb.
Should we decide whether we want to talk about any of the workshops at RRCA, or do you guys want to just?
Yes, definitely. If you guys will have a more formal presentation of the workshops information, and also if you have suggestions that you want to bring forward, we can definitely have a longer, more in-depth discussion about ideas you have about those sessions that you attended.
What do you guys think? Should we do that? Debbie, Nikki, Susan? Yes, I'm seeing nodding. At least your computer is nodding, Nikki. Okay.
Add that, yeah. Okay.
I'll add that on.
Type a comment. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, our next meeting is Tuesday, June 11th. Anything else for the good of the order? Y'all are doing a great job. Oh, and if just a reminder, we changed the date of the storage unit move. It's not going to be this weekend. It's going to be June 8th. That's Saturday. So if anybody can make it, I've already heard from most of you. If you can or not, and what you're going to bring. It's going to be a lot simpler than the original equipment move because it's only 2 units. And these are bigger items. And so it's going to just be, I think it'll be much easier to move in a short period of time. Carissa.
Oh, hi. I didn't mean to interrupt or anything.
Oh,
There's a global running day
Right.
collaboration on Wednesday, June 5th, and Rip City Runners is trying to get like all the run clubs everybody has a group run on Wednesday to do the same run. And so they reached out to us and asked if we wanted to participate. I said we don't have a Wednesday group run, but we'll be willing to post it on social media. But it's also an opportunity, if we're interested, to give them our logo and maybe like a freebie, like a race entry or something they can raffle off like that. If we want to. I mean, I just said I'd ask. So
Yeah, no, I think that'd be great.
What's the group again?
it's Rip City Runners, and they've just been asking everybody. Like the shoe store is in on it, and a bunch of other running clubs have already kind of signed on to it. But yeah, Rip City Runners reached out to me.
When is the day? When's the running day?
Wednesday, June 5.
Nikki, do we need to have people sign waivers?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, even if we don't do something all together or collaborate with Rip City, we could still like post it and get people to post their selfies on the thread or something like that. Yeah, so the waivers, yeah, if we have an organized group run, we actually should be having a trained leader and all the participants signing waivers so they don't sue us. But that doesn't apply to this, maybe, unless we're actually going to participate with them.
Yeah, we don't have to be one of the run organizers. We could just be like a sponsor, and that they'll put our logo on stuff, and if we give them something, Mike can also make sure they have waivers.
According to the liability workshop, that's still a great way to get sued.
They'll name everyone. That's true. They name everyone.
They'll name everyone. Yeah.
There's a lawsuit right now, you guys, with a court date in Portland with a different running club, a different RRCA running club in Portland, $300,000 lawsuit against them for an injury on a group run.
Wow.
Person ran into a fence.
Wow.
I don't know how we're supposed to talk about that, but
I apologize.
Well,
going back in time.
It's real though.
Yeah. I mean, Red Lizards, they do waivers. Other groups I have done locally, I've done waivers.
And there's like form waivers on the RRCA website that we can use and put our information into.
It'd be really nice if we had an electronic waiver, because like I've done Trail Sisters runs and they have an electronic waiver. They even have you sign with your finger.
Is it a waiver for when you do it the first time that covers all of your participation, or is it just every time you go you have to sign?
Yes, because also they can track it because they have a website where you have to sign on and be a member and be part of a local group to even see what their runs are. So and they'll tell you, they'll remind you, you haven't done the participant waiver. Like, this is a thing that you need to do. So it's easier for them to track that. But I know Portland Running Company also at some point had a electronic waiver for their group runs. Like, they used to do their Thursdays like 7 or 8 years ago.
Check with Foot Traffic and see if they actually have their participants sign a waiver. I don't know if they do.
Yeah.
I mean, 35 years ago with the hash groups I used to run with, they had a flipboard waiver. I mean, we signed the flipboard every time we ran. I mean, it was part of the run. You get there, you sign a flipboard every week. We'd sign it. So.
Okay. I'll check with Foot Traffic on that one. But in answer to your question, Chris, I think it's a great idea for us to provide a logo and market it and see if we can, kind of partner with the other running groups and have a fun event.
Okay. I will just keep in touch with you. Like, do we want to offer like a race entry or something like that, or not?
Did we offer them a free entry into Duel and or
Dave's
Solstice Run?
You could give them a best damn run entry.
Sure, both. Why not?
Okay.
I don't get enough comps.
Cool. Awesome.
That was the best damn run and a dual entry.
And a Solstice.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you, Carissa.
Sure, thank you.
All right, anything else? Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for coming tonight and attending. Great discussion, and I will adjourn. Meeting is adjourned. I'll see y'all hopefully soon.